in the quiet heart of the Midwest, where fields stretched as far as the eye could see, and the horizon seemed endless, a young girl named Harper Walker spent her afternoons wandering the open spaces behind her family's modest farmhouse. She was often alone, save for her loyal golden retriever, Rusty, and a well-worn rifle her father had given her for her 12th birthday. While other children her age played video games or chased baseballs in the sun, Harper's world revolved around precision, the delicate art of hitting a distant target with exactitude. Her father, a former marksman in the National Guard, had noticed her uncanny ability from the very first day she picked up the rifle. Harper had an innate steadiness in her hands, an eye for detail that could rival seasoned shooters twice her age, and an almost surgical focus that kept her undistracted by wind, movement, or chatter. She would spend hours practicing in the fields, drawing imaginary targets in the dirt with pebbles, then aligning her sights and squeezing the trigger with methodical patience. Every successful shot was a thrill, but the real satisfaction came from the process, measuring distance, accounting for wind, and controlling her heartbeat in perfect harmony with the pull of the trigger. Despite her talent, Harper's ambitions were often met with skepticism and sometimes outright mockery. "Why don't you stick to dolls or cheerleading, Harper?" classmates would tease. "Sniping isn't for girls." The laughter stung at first, but she quickly learned to let it slide. Criticism fueled her determination rather than diminishing it. While other children might have sought validation from their peers, Harper drew her strength from quiet confidence and the unwavering support of her father, who often stood at the edge of the field, arms crossed, silently observing her progress. He knew she was exceptional, and that knowledge became the foundation of Harper's self-belief. The local shooting competitions became her proving ground. Harper entered the town's annual summer marksmanship contest at age 13, her small frame and youthful appearance causing many older competitors to underestimate her. The snickers were palpable when she signed in, the murmur of disbelief trailing behind her as she approached the firing line. But Harper didn't hear them. Her focus was absolute. As she took aim at the first target, a distant metal plate barely visible against the backdrop of trees, a hush fell over the crowd. One by one, her shots struck perfectly, earning applause that grew with each successful hit. By the end of the competition, Harper had not only won first place but also silenced the doubters, her calm precision commanding respect far beyond her years. Harper's talent was undeniable, yet her ambition extended far beyond small-town competitions. She dreamed of something larger, something that demanded more than natural skill, a challenge that would test her limits, sharpen her focus, and put her abilities to the ultimate test. She spent hours poring over books on military strategy, historical battles, and famous snipers, learning everything she could about tactics, patience, and situational awareness. Her bedroom walls were adorned with diagrams of shooting stances, wind charts, and notes about ballistics. Each evening, she would meticulously record her observations, always seeking to improve, always striving to push the boundaries of her potential. But the road ahead was not without obstacles. Harper faced subtle societal pressures that questioned her role in a male-dominated world of sharpshooting and combat. Teachers and neighbors often offered well-meaning but discouraging advice. "Maybe you should think about a safer career," they would say, hinting that the world she aspired to enter wasn't meant for someone like her. Yet Harper's resolve only hardened. She knew that skill, determination, and grit would carry her farther than prejudice ever could. The whispers of doubt became the fuel that propelled her forward, forging a resilience that would later define her in the crucible of military life. One afternoon, while practicing in a particularly windy section of the field, Harper noticed her father watching her intently, his brow furrowed in concern and pride. "You're getting better every day," he said, his voice carrying a weight of approval that mattered more than any public praise. "But remember, it's not just about hitting the target. It's about knowing yourself, your limits, and when to act." Harper nodded, absorbing his words. She realized that being a sharpshooter wasn't just about physical skill. It was also about mental discipline, patience, and understanding the delicate balance between precision and patience. The local paper caught wind of her accomplishments, publishing a feature that highlighted the young girl from the Midwest who could outshoot competitors twice her age. The attention was thrilling, but Harper remained grounded, aware that her true journey was only beginning. The accolades of a small town were not the end goal. They were merely the first step in a path that would eventually lead her to the most elite training grounds in the United States military. By the time Harper turned 16, her reputation had grown beyond her. Her natural ability, combined with relentless practice and an unyielding mindset, made her a standout among aspiring young marksmen nationwide. Friends and neighbors still offered quiet skepticism, but Harper had learned to meet every doubt with action rather than words. She understood that respect wasn't demanded, it was earned, one precise shot at a time. In the evenings, Harper would sit alone on the farmhouse porch, gazing at the horizon where the sky met the endless fields. She envisioned a future where her skills mattered on a far grander scale, a world where precision and courage could make a tangible difference. She imagined herself navigating dangerous terrain, making split-second decisions, and executing missions that demanded every ounce of focus she had cultivated since childhood. And though the path ahead was uncertain and filled with challenges, Harper felt an unshakable certainty in her heart. She was ready. By the end of that first part of her story, Harper had transformed from a talented small-town girl into a figure of quiet determination, ready to face the trials of a world where skill alone could define destiny. The laughter of those who doubted her had faded into the background, replaced by the steady heartbeat of ambition and the unyielding pursuit of excellence. It was here, in the fields of her youth, that Harper laid the foundation for the legend that would one day echo through the ranks of the United States military, a legend known only by her Ghost Viper. At 18, Harper Walker made a decision that would alter the course of her life forever. She enlisted in the United States military, determined to test her abilities in a world far beyond the familiar fields of her. While friends celebrated college acceptance letters and summer jobs, Harper was drawn to something more dangerous, more demanding, a place where skill, courage, and discipline were the ultimate currency. She knew the challenges would be immense and the skepticism would be relentless, but the fire inside her refused to be extinguished. From the very first day at boot camp, Harper felt the weight of expectation, or rather, the lack of it. Many of her fellow recruits and even some instructors seemed unconsciously dismissive, a subtle but constant reminder that she didn't fit the mold of what a soldier should be. Her female peers welcomed her with quiet camaraderie, but the men were a mix of curiosity, disbelief, and mild derision. Harper had anticipated this. She had faced the laughter and doubt of her, and now it was on a much larger stage. The early days were grueling. Harper endured the exhausting physical training, the hours of drilling, and the relentless scrutiny of instructors who seemed to question her abilities at every turn. Some of the recruits whispered behind her back, calling her the girl who thinks she can shoot like a man. Others outright laughed when they heard she aimed to specialize in sniping. A sniper? Seriously? You're barely holding that rifle steady, one sarcastic voice had sneered during weapons orientation. Harper's cheeks burned, not from embarrassment, but from the simmering determination that flared inside her. Every doubter became fuel for her resolve. Harper quickly learned that the battlefield of perception could be as challenging as any training course. Every shot she fired during rifle exercises was measured, evaluated, and often compared to her male counterparts. The instructors, initially skeptical, began to notice a pattern. Harper's precision was uncanny, her patience remarkable, and her composure under stress extraordinary. While others might falter at the noise, the recoil, or the unpredictability of a moving target, Harper excelled. She quickly became the quiet anomaly, someone no one expected to succeed, yet impossible to ignore. The defining moment of skepticism and the seed of her legendary came during her first advanced marksmanship course. Harper had requested access to a specialized sniper rifle, one typically reserved for elite trainees, fully aware that the request would draw attention. When she approached the armory, a group of seasoned recruits and even a few junior officers laughed openly. "You want that rifle? Don't you think it's a bit heavy for, well, you?" one of them said, smirking. Another muttered something about the futility of letting a girl handle such a weapon. Harper's hands tightened around the rifle's stock, but she didn't respond. She simply nodded, her focus unwavering. The instructors, who had been observing from a distance, were curious. Harper had demonstrated skill far above her peers in earlier tests, but would it translate under pressure? They decided to watch her during the range test. Harper's breathing was steady, her heartbeat controlled, and her mind completely focused on the target. The first shot hit perfectly. The second. The third. Each bullet found its mark with deadly accuracy, and by the fifth, even the loudest skeptics had gone silent. The rifle, heavy and unyielding in inexperienced hands, felt like an extension of Harper herself. It wasn't just skill, it was instinct, honed through years of practice and determination. Word of Harper's abilities spread quickly through the training ranks. The same recruits who had laughed now glanced at her with cautious respect. Some quietly admitted that they had underestimated her, though Harper paid little mind to their grudging admiration. She knew that the real challenge lay ahead, proving herself in scenarios that tested not just accuracy, but tactical intelligence, teamwork, and nerves under fire. Her goal wasn't to win approval. It was to demonstrate, without doubt, that competence and courage had nothing to do with gender. Harper's training accelerated as she was selected for specialized courses. She endured long marches with heavy packs, obstacle courses designed to break even the strongest soldiers, and survival exercises in harsh conditions. She became adept at navigation, camouflage, and stealth, skills that would later define her success as a sniper. The instructors noted her ability to think ahead, anticipate enemy movements, and remain calm under extreme stress. Every mission scenario, every simulated ambush, showcased not only her marksmanship but her strategic mind. She wasn't just a sharpshooter, she was a tactician in motion, blending patience with action in ways that few had seen before. Yet Harper's journey wasn't just about technical mastery. The social battlefield remained intense. Some male soldiers continued to harbor doubt, testing her resolve with subtle challenges, taunts during drills, questioning her abilities during exercises, or assigning her physically demanding tasks under the guise of equality. Harper met each test with quiet confidence. She learned to let her actions speak louder than words, to respond with excellence rather than anger, and to maintain focus even when surrounded by distraction or derision. In this way, Harper's character was forged alongside her skill, a blend of humility, determination, and unshakable resolve. One evening, after a grueling day that included a simulated mission requiring precision shots from extreme distances, Harper sat alone on the barracks porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. She reflected on the laughter and doubt that had followed her from childhood to boot camp, realizing that each challenge had strengthened her. She understood that the path ahead, the world of elite military operations, would demand more than skill. It would demand courage, patience, and an unwavering belief in herself, and she was ready. By the end of her first year in training, Harper had become a quiet legend among her peers. The ridicule that had once met her requests and ambitions had been replaced by whispers of respect and cautious admiration. While she remained humble, focused solely on her development, her reputation was growing. She was no longer the girl from the Midwest, underestimated by everyone. She was a soldier, a sniper in the making, someone who would soon earn a that would command silence and respect from even the most hardened SEALs. The chapter of enlistment and early skepticism closed with Harper standing at the firing range one last time before advanced deployment training. The wind whispered through the trees, rustling the papers of her meticulously kept notes. She checked her rifle, tightened her grip, and exhaled. The laughter and doubt of the past no longer mattered. She had proven herself where it counted, and the world beyond the base awaited. Harper's journey from underestimated recruit to legendary sharpshooter was just beginning, a journey that would test her limits and reveal the true extent of her courage and skill. Harper Walker had survived the grueling demands of basic training and advanced marksmanship, but nothing prepared her for what came next, the moment when skill, reputation, and identity collided in the world of elite military operations. She had been selected for a specialized program that trained only the most precise and disciplined soldiers, a course designed for snipers and reconnaissance experts, often in collaboration with Navy SEAL units. The stakes were higher than anything she had faced before. Here, every misstep could mean failure, and every success could earn respect, or fear, from the most hardened soldiers in the armed forces. The first day of the advanced program began with a quiet sense of anticipation. Harper stepped into the briefing room, her rifle slung across her back, and was met by a room full of experienced operatives. Most were men, several years older, seasoned by combat and missions she could barely imagine. Their eyes scanned her, not with curiosity but with skepticism. A few whispered among themselves, smirking, confident that this young woman would struggle under the demands of elite-level training. Harper sensed the doubt, but it didn't intimidate her. If anything, it fueled her focus. An instructor approached and handed out assignment sheets. Harper scanned hers quickly, noting the assigned to her for the duration of the course. It was Ghost Viper. The name seemed almost mythical, resonating with danger and precision. At first, Harper felt a flicker of unease. In this program weren't mere labels, they carried weight, often referencing elite operators whose skills and reputation commanded instant recognition. But Harper's unease transformed into determination. She would live up to the name, prove that it was no empty title. As she looked around the room, she noticed subtle reactions from the SEALs and instructors. Some glanced at her file, then back at her, eyes narrowing. Others whispered in low tones. Harper initially dismissed it as curiosity until a commanding officer stepped forward. "So, Ghost Viper," he said, his tone calm but edged with caution, "you're the one who requested the sniper rifle in basic." Everyone laughed, didn't they? He let the statement hang, his eyes scanning the room, knowing full well that the laughter had not been polite. Harper nodded slowly, meeting his gaze. "Yes, sir," she said evenly, "and now I'm here." The reaction was immediate. The whispers ceased. The smirks faded. The SEALs who had dismissed her request for a sniper rifle suddenly sat up, their previous amusement replaced by an unspoken recognition. Ghost Viper. It wasn't just it was a warning, a symbol of precision, lethality, and a reputation that preceded her. Harper felt a quiet thrill as the weight of her new identity settled over her. The laughter of the past had evaporated. In its place was a charged silence, heavy with expectation. The first exercise of the program tested both skill and composure. Harper was paired with a team of experienced operators for a simulated mission in rugged terrain. They were to locate and neutralize a target under challenging conditions, steep hills, dense foliage, and unpredictable weather. Her teammates, still cautious, observed her closely, measuring her reactions, her stamina, and her marksmanship. Harper's focus never wavered. She analyzed the terrain, calculated distances, and plotted the perfect route for observation. Every movement was deliberate, every decision precise. When the moment came to fire, Harper adjusted for wind, distance, and angle and squeezed the trigger with flawless timing. The bullet struck its mark with silent authority. The SEALs, who had once doubted her, exchanged subtle nods of acknowledgement. Her calm demeanor, combined with the deadly accuracy of her shot, immediately established her credibility. Ghost Viper was no longer just it was a statement. Her presence demanded attention, respect, and caution. Harper realized that in this world, skill was the only language that mattered, and she spoke it fluently. Over the next several days, Harper's performance continued to impress. She navigated complex exercises that combined reconnaissance, stealth, and marksmanship. Her teammates, initially skeptical, began to rely on her judgment, quietly deferring to her decisions during planning and execution. Harper never flaunted her abilities. She simply performed, letting the results speak louder than words. The Ghost Viper became more than an identifier. It became a brand, representing precision, calm under pressure, and the kind of tactical intelligence that could change the outcome of a mission. Even the instructors, some of whom had doubted her at the outset, were forced to reassess their assumptions. Harper's ability to analyze situations, anticipate threats, and execute flawless shots under extreme conditions set her apart from even the most seasoned trainees. She had mastered not just the mechanics of sniping, but the mental and emotional discipline required to excel in high-stakes environments. Her reputation grew quietly but steadily, carried in whispers through the training compound. The female sniper who commanded respect with the mere mention of her. Despite the growing respect, Harper remained vigilant. She knew that the true measure of a sniper wasn't in training exercises or simulated missions. It was in real-world operations, where lives depended on every calculation, every decision, and every shot. She continued to push herself, rising before dawn to practice in the fields behind the base, analyzing every angle, every trajectory, and every potential variable. Harper understood that excellence was never static. It was a constant pursuit, a relentless drive to improve. One evening, after a particularly grueling week, Harper sat alone on a ridge overlooking the training grounds. The sunset cast long shadows across the landscape, and the wind whispered through the trees. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from the small-town girl laughed at for requesting a sniper rifle to the elite trainee known as Ghost Viper. There was more than a title. It was a responsibility, a challenge, and a promise she had made to herself. She would not just live up to it, she would define it. The reaction of the SEALs and instructors had left a lasting impression. The initial laughter, the casual dismissal, and the whispered skepticism had been replaced by cautious respect, silent acknowledgement, and an unspoken recognition of Harper's talent. Ghost Viper had arrived, not with fanfare, but with the quiet, undeniable authority that came from skill, discipline, and relentless focus. Harper smiled faintly, understanding that the real test was only beginning. There was a key, unlocking doors to missions, opportunities, and challenges that few soldiers ever faced. By the end of this first phase, Harper had proven that ability transcended doubt, and that focus and determination could silence even the most experienced critics. She had earned the respect of the SEALs, instructors, and peers alike, all without raising her voice or seeking approval. Ghost Viper was no longer just a name on a piece of paper. It was a legend in the making, whispered in training halls and echoed across obstacle courses. Harper's journey had shifted from proving herself to mastering her craft, preparing for missions that would define her legacy. The reveal had transformed the perception of Harper Walker. From the girl laughed at for asking for a rifle to the silent force commanding respect, she had demonstrated that skill and courage could break through skepticism. In that charged silence, she recognized her own potential and the promise of what was to come. Harper knew that the real battles, the true tests of her abilities, lay ahead. But for the first time, she faced them with the quiet confidence of someone who had already conquered doubt, earning a place in a world where precision and resolve were the ultimate currency. Harper Walker had survived the trials of training, earned her, and commanded respect from the SEALs, but nothing could fully prepare her for her first real mission. The day began before dawn, with a cold wind cutting across the rugged coastline where the team had been deployed. The SEALs moved silently, boots crunching over wet sand and jagged rocks, each step measured, every sense alert. Harper's heart beat steadily, but not from fear. She had trained for this moment and she was ready. Today, her skills would be tested in a way that training exercises could never replicate. The mission briefing had been sparse. A high-value target was operating in a small, fortified compound several kilometers inland. Intelligence suggested the target had evaded capture for months, slipping through the hands of elite units, leaving chaos in his wake. Harper's role was critical. She would provide overwatch, identifying the target and neutralizing threats from a distance, giving the team the advantage they needed to succeed. As the team advanced through dense undergrowth, Harper's eyes scanned every shadow, every movement, and every possible escape route. Precision, patience, and vigilance, her training condensed into razor-sharp focus. The SEALs, initially cautious around her, had fallen into formation with Harper at the designated observation point. They moved with her silently, communicating with hand signals and subtle gestures. Harper set up her sniper nest in a concealed location overlooking the compound. The sun was just beginning to rise, streaking the sky with muted colors that barely illuminated the landscape. Her fingers brushed over the rifle's scope, checking windage, adjusting for distance and confirming the stability of her position. Every calculation mattered. One misjudgment could jeopardize the mission or cost lives. Time slowed as Harper focused on her target area. Enemy patrols moved unpredictably, guards packing along walls and rooftops, unaware that they were being watched. Harper remained motionless, her breath controlled, her mind analyzing patterns, calculating angles, and anticipating movements. Each second stretched into an eternity, yet she remained calm. She was Ghost Viper, an identity forged through relentless training and unyielding focus. Her team had come to trust her instincts, and now that trust would be tested. The first opportunity presented itself when a lone guard wandered slightly off course, exposing a vulnerable position. Harper adjusted her scope, accounted for wind, and exhaled slowly. The shot was clean, silent, and precise. The guard went down without alerting the others. The SEALs signaled discreet acknowledgement, impressed by her composure and accuracy. Harper's first real kill as a sniper in a live mission had been executed flawlessly, proving that her reputation was well-earned. She didn't allow herself a moment of pride. Focus remained absolute, because the mission was far from over. As the team moved closer to the compound, Harper's scope tracked multiple threats simultaneously. Explosives, patrol patterns, and potential escape routes all entered her calculations. Her ability to maintain awareness of the big picture while executing perfect micro-adjustments to her rifle impressed even the most seasoned SEALs. "She's not just accurate, she's thinking 10 moves ahead," one muttered under his breath. Harper, unseen in her concealed position, allowed herself a fleeting acknowledgement of the compliment, then refocused on the task at hand. Suddenly, movement on the rooftop drew her attention. A second target was armed and surveying the surrounding area. Harper adjusted her aim, accounting for distance and elevation, and fired. The shot struck true, neutralizing the threat and keeping the team's approach undetected. The SEALs pressed forward, relying on Harper's overwatch to cover their advance. In that moment, the team's initial doubts melted entirely. Ghost Viper was no longer merely she was a critical asset, a linchpin upon which the success of the mission now depended. The team reached the compound's perimeter, preparing to breach. Harper continued to provide overwatch, scanning the compound's windows, doorways, and perimeter for any last-minute threats. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, her precision, and her strategic insight had earned the unspoken respect of every SEAL in the unit. No longer was she the rookie, the girl they had doubted. She had become indispensable, her presence commanding trust and reliance that few operators could claim after only one mission. When the SEALs finally entered the compound and secured the target, Harper remained in her position, covering their route. Her team signaled with subtle hand gestures of approval and relief. The mission had been a complete success, thanks in no small part to her lethal accuracy and unwavering vigilance. As the team extracted and regrouped in a safe zone, Harper finally allowed herself to breathe, her pulse steady but her mind buzzing with the realization of what had just occurred. She had transformed from trainee to operative, from doubted rookie to trusted sniper. The respect she earned that day extended beyond the immediate mission. Within the military community, stories of her first deployment began to circulate quietly but with growing enthusiasm. Fellow soldiers spoke of Ghost Viper's uncanny ability to remain unseen, her precision in eliminating threats, and her calm, calculated demeanor under extreme pressure. The SEALs, who had once dismissed her presence, now referred to her with quiet reverence, acknowledging that she had proven herself in ways few could achieve. Yet Harper remained grounded. She knew that one successful mission did not define a career. Each operation would demand more focus, more patience, and more skill. She continued to train relentlessly, analyzing every shot, every movement, and every decision she had made. Excellence was not static, it was a constant pursuit, and Harper was determined to perfect her craft. The field had given her respect, but she understood that respect was earned every day, in every shot, in every mission. That night back at the base, Harper reflected on the day's events. She sat alone in her tent, rifle by her side, reviewing mental notes and tactical observations. The sun had set, leaving the sky awash with stars, each one a reminder of the vast world she was now part of, a world where precision and patience could mean the difference between life and death. Harper felt a quiet pride in what she had accomplished, but she also felt the weight of responsibility. She knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater. Harper had crossed a threshold. The mission had proven her skill, earned her the trust of elite operators, and cemented her reputation as a sniper to be reckoned with. Ghost Viper was no longer assigned on paper. It was a living, breathing reality. Every SEAL who had doubted her now knew the truth. Ability, courage, and focus were not defined by gender, but by determination, skill, and the unwavering will to succeed. Harper had earned her place among the most elite, and the battlefield had given her the respect she had long sought. By the end of her first mission, Harper Walker had transformed irrevocably. She was no longer the girl who had been laughed at for asking for a rifle. She was Ghost Viper, the sniper whose precision and discipline had earned the silent admiration of the SEALs, the trust of her team, and the beginnings of a legend that would grow far beyond the confines of this first deployment. The field had tested her, and she had passed, not just with skill, but with the unwavering composure and courage that would define the rest of her journey. Harper Walker had earned her, survived training, and proven herself in her first mission, but nothing could have fully prepared her for what came next. Intelligence reports indicated a high-value target operating in a volatile urban region overseas, surrounded by heavily armed operatives. This wasn't a simulation. This wasn't a controlled training exercise. This was real. Lives hung in the balance, and the mission demanded absolute precision. Harper's role was critical. One shot, one decision, could determine whether the mission succeeded or ended in disaster. The night before the mission, Harper reviewed every detail with meticulous care. Satellite images, street layouts, patrol schedules, and wind patterns became as familiar to her as the back of her hand. She visualized every possible scenario, anticipating enemy movements and escape routes. Harper understood the stakes. The SEALs would rely on her cover, and the success of the mission depended on her calm judgment and lethal accuracy. There was no room for hesitation. Ghost Viper's reputation was on the line, and Harper felt the weight of it like a second heartbeat. The team approached the operation site under the cover of darkness, moving with the fluid precision of soldiers who had trained together for years. Harper found her sniper nest in an abandoned building overlooking the target's position. Through the scope, she could see guards packing, vehicles moving, and the faint glimmer of lights reflecting off weapons. Every detail mattered. Every breath, every shift in shadow could reveal a critical opportunity or a deadly mistake. Harper adjusted her position, ensuring concealment while maximizing visibility. Patience, she reminded herself. Precision first. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Harper tracked the target's movements. She observed, calculated, and waited, her mind a machine of tactical reasoning. Then it happened. The target emerged briefly from cover, scanning the streets, unaware of the danger looming above. Harper's breathing slowed to a controlled rhythm, her heartbeat steady. She accounted for distance, elevation, and the subtle wind gusts swirling between buildings. One shot, one chance. A single pull of the trigger, would determine the fate of the mission. Harper exhaled slowly, aligned her scope, and fired. The bullet struck with lethal precision. The target went down, neutralized instantly. For a heartbeat, silence hung over the team as if the world itself had paused to witness the moment. Then, almost simultaneously, the SEALs erupted into silent communication. Hand signals, quick glances, subtle nods of approval. Harper's heart remained steady, but inside, a surge of relief and quiet satisfaction coursed through her. She had executed the perfect shot, just as training had demanded. Lives had been saved, and the mission was on track. The operation wasn't over. Enemy reinforcements were converging on the area, alerted by distant gunfire. Harper's role shifted seamlessly from assassination to overwatch, guiding the SEALs as they navigated narrow alleyways and rooftops. She relayed positions, calculated trajectories, and neutralized threats as needed, her focus never faltering. Each decision, each shot was deliberate. Harper's composure inspired confidence in her team, even as chaos threatened to erupt around them. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, to act decisively when seconds mattered, had earned her more than respect. It had earned the trust of elite soldiers who once doubted her. At one critical moment, a guard rounded a corner, weapon raised, unaware of Harper's presence. She fired instinctively, eliminating the threat before it could endanger her teammates. The SEALs advanced, covering ground that would have been impossible without her protection. Harper's eyes scanned for any remaining dangers, adjusting for each movement, each shift in the environment. Her training had taught her to anticipate, to predict, to act before chaos could take hold. She was no longer just a participant. She was a pivot point, the keystone upon which the mission now depended. As the team reached the extraction point, Harper maintained overwatch, scanning every approach for hidden threats. The operation's success hinged on her vigilance, and she remained utterly focused, every muscle and thought tuned to the task. When the last SEAL safely reached the evacuation vehicle, Harper finally lowered her rifle slightly, her pulse steady but her mind still racing with analysis and gratitude. The mission had been executed flawlessly, and the team's lives had been preserved thanks to her skill, patience, and unwavering focus. Back at the base, the aftermath was quiet but palpable. Harper's performance during the mission spread through the ranks like wildfire. Whispers turned into praise, praise into recognition. Fellow soldiers, many of whom had doubted her abilities before training, now looked at her with admiration and respect. Ghost Viper was no longer just a title. It was a testament to skill, courage, and the quiet ferocity that defined Harper herself. She had silenced any remaining skepticism with her actions. Despite the accolades and approval, Harper remained grounded. She knew that one successful mission did not define her career. Each operation, each challenge, would demand the same meticulous attention to detail, the same mental discipline, and the same courage under fire. Harper reviewed every action, every shot, and every decision from the mission, seeking areas for improvement even in her flawless execution. Excellence was not static. It was a pursuit without end, and Harper's dedication to mastery remained unwavering. That night, Harper sat on the rooftop of the base, looking out over the city below. The hum of distant traffic, the glow of streetlights, and the quiet stirrings of life were a reminder of the fragile balance she helped maintain. She reflected on her journey from the small-town girl laughed at for asking for a rifle to the lethal sniper who had just saved the lives of her teammates. Ghost Viper was no longer an emerging identity. It was a reality forged in discipline, skill, and courage. In private moments, Harper allowed herself to acknowledge the pride she felt, not for recognition, but for the knowledge that her abilities had made a tangible difference. She understood that her role was both a privilege and a responsibility to herself, her team, and every life affected by her precision. The SEALs who had once doubted her now regarded her with silent awe, knowing that her presence in the field was a guarantee of calm, precision, and effectiveness under pressure. The mission had changed Harper in ways both subtle and profound. She was no longer just a soldier proving herself. She was a vital operative, a trusted sniper, and a mentor in the making. Ghost Viper was no longer a test of skill. It was a promise of excellence, a beacon of what could be achieved through relentless focus and unwavering determination. Harper had faced the crucible of her first real combat operation and emerged victorious. Her reputation, her skills validated, and her confidence immeasurably strengthened. By the time she returned to base, Harper Walker's legend had begun to grow. Ghost Viper was whispered about among new recruits, admired by seasoned operatives, and respected by those who had once doubted her. The laughter that had greeted her request for a sniper rifle was long gone, replaced by the silent acknowledgement of her lethal capability. Harper's journey was far from over, but in that critical moment, she had proven that courage, skill, and determination could redefine perception, earn respect, and save lives. Harper sat quietly in her tent that night, rifle cleaned and packed, notes reviewed, and mind racing with the lessons learned. She knew that more challenges awaited, more missions, and more moments that would test her limits. But one thing was certain. Harper Walker, Ghost Viper, had earned the trust of the SEALs, had proven herself in the field, and had taken the first steps toward becoming a legend that would inspire future generations of soldiers. The moment of truth had arrived, and she had not only survived, she had excelled. After her flawless performance in the high-stakes mission, Harper Walker, Ghost Viper, found herself at the center of whispers that traveled through the military ranks like wildfire. Her precision, patience, and unwavering composure had earned her the trust and admiration of the SEALs and her fellow operators. In the quiet moments between missions, soldiers who had once doubted her now sought her insights, watching her carefully, eager to learn from someone whose abilities transcended skepticism. Harper's reputation was growing, not through self-promotion, but through action, a silent testament to the skill and focus that defined her every move. At first, Harper noticed it in subtle ways. During briefings, instructors would nod toward her before making strategic decisions. During training exercises, recruits would glance at her position for guidance, quietly deferring to her judgment. Even senior officers, often impervious to the accomplishments of young soldiers, began to acknowledge her as a reliable, formidable operative. Whispered conversations would often include phrases like, "Have you seen Ghost Viper in action?" Or "She's not just a sniper, she's a tactician." The murmurs followed her, quietly growing louder with each successful mission. Harper herself remained grounded. She did not seek recognition or accolades. She trained relentlessly, reviewing each mission in meticulous detail, analyzing every decision, every shot, every movement. For her, excellence was a pursuit, not a destination. She understood that her growing reputation carried weight and responsibility. Soldiers looked to her as a model of skill and calm under pressure, and she accepted the unspoken burden with quiet humility. Ghost Viper was no longer merely it had become a symbol of discipline, precision, and unwavering focus. Young recruits were especially captivated by Harper. Many female trainees, in particular, had once been intimidated by the male-dominated environment, unsure if they could ever succeed at the highest levels of military operations. Harper became a quiet beacon of possibility. She would offer advice during downtime, sharing strategies for maintaining focus, managing stress, and mastering marksmanship. Her words were measured, her tone calm, and her insights always rooted in experience rather than ego. She had become a mentor without intending to, her presence alone inspiring confidence and determination in those who followed in her footsteps. Stories of her exploits began to spread beyond the immediate unit. Reports of Ghost Viper's first mission, where her precision had neutralized threats and ensured the safety of the SEALs, became legendary among other operatives and trainers. "If Ghost Viper is covering you, you're safe," became a phrase whispered among soldiers preparing for deployment. The had evolved from a label into a badge of honor, symbolizing both lethal skill and unwavering reliability. Harper's accomplishments were no longer confined to her own experience. They had become a standard by which others measured themselves. The growing recognition came with its own challenges. Harper had to navigate the delicate balance between humility and responsibility. She remained focused on her training, always aware that fame, however quiet, could become a distraction in the wrong hands. Some attempted to test her, hoping to catch a moment of overconfidence. But Harper's training and discipline had prepared her for scrutiny as well as action. She maintained her composure, proving that true skill was inseparable from self-control, patience, and respect for the mission above all else. One afternoon, during an advanced tactical exercise, a group of new recruits struggled to synchronize their movements under simulated enemy fire. Harper observed quietly, then stepped in, offering guidance in precise, concise instructions. She demonstrated advanced techniques for cover, positioning, and timing, while maintaining her role as an observer. The recruits followed her lead, astonished by her clarity and calm under pressure. By the end of the exercise, what had begun as disorganized chaos transformed into seamless coordination, illustrating not only Harper's mastery of combat, but also her ability to inspire competence and confidence in others. As Harper's reputation grew, so did the respect of her peers. SEALs and other elite operatives began to consult her during mission planning, valuing her strategic insight alongside her sharpshooting skills. She became a quiet force in the operations room, someone whose judgment carried weight and whose presence reassured even the most experienced soldiers. Her calm under pressure was not arrogance, it was confidence born of preparation and relentless practice. Harper Walker, once doubted and laughed at, had become a cornerstone of elite operations, the embodiment of skill, focus, and unwavering determination. Yet Harper never allowed her reputation to cloud her purpose. She continued to train alone for hours, refining every aspect of her craft: breathing, trigger control, situational awareness, and mental discipline. She studied reports from other missions, analyzed failures and successes, and sought to improve with every opportunity. Harper understood that respect could not be taken for granted. It had to be reinforced through consistent excellence. Ghost Viper was a symbol of that excellence, but Harper knew it was also a responsibility, a standard she had to uphold every day. The quiet admiration she received from other soldiers gradually became more pronounced. During briefings, instructors would reference her performance as an example for tactical precision. During missions, teammates instinctively trusted her judgment, relying on her calculations and observations to guide their actions. Harper's ability to maintain focus, precision, and composure under extreme pressure was now recognized as a critical asset, something that could determine the outcome of complex operations. Her skill was no longer a secret; it had become a benchmark of excellence. Despite the growing fame and admiration, Harper's focus remained singular. She trained with a discipline that few could match, pushing herself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Every exercise, every mission, every calculated shot was a step toward mastery. Harper understood that true greatness was not a destination but a continuous journey. The respect she had earned was not the goal; it was a reflection of her relentless pursuit of excellence. Ghost Viper was no longer it was the embodiment of her skill, resilience, and unwavering dedication to the craft. By the end of this period, Harper's reputation had not only within her unit but across multiple branches of elite forces. She was recognized as a sniper whose abilities went far beyond accuracy, whose judgment could influence the outcome of critical missions, and whose calm demeanor inspired confidence in all who worked alongside her. The whispers of skepticism and doubt had long faded, replaced by a quiet, unanimous respect. Harper Walker, Ghost Viper, had become a living legend, a symbol of what discipline, skill, and determination could achieve in the face of doubt and adversity. Harper's story was no longer just her own. It had become a source of inspiration for the next generation of soldiers, a testament to the power of perseverance and excellence. Young recruits looked to her as a model, learning that success was earned through focus, preparation, and unwavering belief in one's abilities. The ghost viper had become more than a label. It was a symbol of possibility, a living legend that would continue to inspire and guide soldiers for years to come. As Harper prepared for the next mission, she reflected quietly on the journey that had brought her here, from a small-town girl laughed at for asking for a rifle to an elite operative commanding respect and admiration. She understood that reputation was fleeting unless paired with continuous effort and dedication. Ghost Viper was not just a name. It was a standard, a challenge, and a promise. And Harper Walker intended to honor that promise, every day, every shot, every mission. Harper Walker, known across the elite ranks as Ghost Viper, had proven herself time and again. Her lethal precision, calm under pressure, and strategic mind had earned the respect of the SEALs, instructors, and soldiers she had served alongside. But as her reputation grew, Harper began to understand that her impact could extend far beyond her own missions. It was one thing to be a silent, lethal operative in the field. It was another to shape the next generation, to pass on skills, strategies, and the mindset necessary to survive and excel in the most dangerous situations. Her first opportunity to mentor came unexpectedly. During a specialized sniper and reconnaissance course, Harper was asked to observe a group of young recruits, many of whom were struggling under the demands of precision and discipline. Some of these recruits were fresh out of boot camp, uncertain of their abilities, and intimidated by the elite environment. Harper remembered exactly how it felt to be underestimated, laughed at, and questioned when she had first requested a sniper rifle. She felt a quiet determination to ensure that no one under her guidance would face doubt, without support and direction. The recruits were initially wary. Ghost Viper's reputation preceded her, and some felt a mixture of awe and intimidation at her presence. Harper approached them calmly, her posture relaxed but confident, her voice steady and measured. She began by observing their techniques, noting each trainee's strengths and weaknesses. Precision isn't about speed, she explained during the first session. It's about patience, control, and understanding your environment. Every shot, every movement matters. Treat it as if lives depend on it, because they do. Her words carried weight, not because they were loud, but because they were backed by unparalleled experience. Over the weeks, Harper immersed herself in the mentorship process. She created individualized strategies for each recruit, teaching them not just the mechanics of shooting and stealth, but also mental discipline, focus, and situational awareness. She emphasized the importance of preparation, the power of observation, and the critical need to remain calm under pressure. For recruits struggling with fear or self-doubt, Harper shared her own story, how she had been laughed at in her, underestimated in training, and faced skepticism even in the presence of the most elite operators. Her honesty resonated deeply. Under Harper's guidance, the recruits began to transform. They learned to slow their breathing, to analyze terrain before acting, and to anticipate threats with precision. Harper pushed them, but always with a measured hand, never overwhelming them, always challenging them to exceed what they thought was possible. She demonstrated advanced tactics herself, showing how to navigate complex urban environments, calculate trajectories under extreme conditions, and maintain focus when everything around them demanded distraction. With every lesson, Harper's calm authority inspired confidence. Her mentorship extended beyond technical skills. Harper taught the recruits the value of discipline, humility, and respect for their team. She emphasized that true excellence was not measured by accolades or recognition, but by the ability to execute flawlessly under pressure, protect teammates, and make decisions that saved lives. "You're not just snipers or operatives," she told them during one session. "You're guardians. Your skill has meaning only when it protects those around you. Remember that always." Her words sank in, shaping not only their techniques but their mindset and character. As Harper continued mentoring, her legend grew. The SEALs and instructors who had once doubted her now deferred to her guidance, recognizing that her judgment and experience were invaluable. Young recruits looked up to her as a living example of what determination, discipline, and relentless focus could achieve. Stories of her missions, her precision, and her calm in the face of danger circulated quietly, inspiring admiration and respect. Ghost Viper was no longer just a name. It was a symbol of excellence, leadership, and mentorship in the elite ranks. The responsibility weighed heavily on Harper at times. Mentorship required patience, empathy, and continuous attention to the development of others, a challenge as demanding as any mission. She dedicated long hours to reviewing progress, providing constructive feedback, and fine-tuning each recruit's skills. Harper understood that the impact she could have on these young operatives would ripple outward, influencing the effectiveness and safety of future missions. She embraced the responsibility fully, knowing that her legacy would be measured not just by her own accomplishments, but by the skill, resilience, and courage she instilled in others. One particularly intense training session tested both Harper and her recruits. The scenario involved navigating a hostile urban environment, identifying multiple threats, and neutralizing targets without detection. Harper observed from a concealed position, guiding her trainees with subtle signals and whispered instructions. She watched as they hesitated, calculated, and eventually executed their plans with increasing confidence and precision. By the end of the exercise, the transformation was undeniable. The once uncertain recruits moved with coordinated confidence, demonstrating skills and strategic thinking Harper had helped cultivate. Beyond the training ground, Harper also focused on fostering camaraderie and trust among the recruits. She encouraged collaboration, communication, and mutual support, understanding that a team's strength depended on the cohesion of its members. She shared insights on teamwork, explaining how each operative's role contributed to the mission's overall success. Harper's mentorship emphasized that excellence was never solitary. It was the product of disciplined individuals working together toward a common goal. Her recruits learned not only to master their own skills, but also to rely on and trust one another fully. Harper's influence extended to shaping the culture of the program itself. Instructors began to incorporate her techniques, strategies, and insights into the broader curriculum. Her approach to mental discipline, situational awareness, and strategic patience became models for other instructors to emulate. Ghost Viper was no longer merely an operative who excelled in the field. She was a teacher, a strategist, and a standard-bearer for what elite soldiers could achieve when skill, patience, and focus were combined. Through her mentorship, Harper began to see the broader impact of her journey. She realized that her path, from the small-town girl laughed at for asking for a sniper rifle, to a trusted and lethal operative, to a mentor shaping the next generation, had created a ripple effect. Recruits who learned from her would go on to save lives, execute missions flawlessly, and carry forward the principles she had instilled. Harper's legacy was no longer just about her personal achievements. It was about the enduring influence she had on the people, missions, and values of the elite forces she served. In quiet moments, Harper reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the skepticism she had faced, the laughter she had endured, and the obstacles she had overcome. Every challenge, every doubt had forged her into the operator she had become. And now, through mentorship, she had the power to transform others in the same way. Ghost Viper was no longer a solitary figure in the field. She had become a guiding presence, shaping the future of elite operations, inspiring courage, skill, and focus in those who followed her lead. By the end of this chapter of her life, Harper had become more than just a legendary sniper. She was a mentor, a leader, and a symbol of possibility. Her legacy was not measured by the number of missions completed or the precision of her shots alone. It was measured by the lives she influenced, the skills she cultivated in others, and the enduring inspiration she provided to soldiers who aspired to reach her level of excellence. Ghost Viper was a name that had begun as evolved into a legend, and now represented something far greater: the embodiment of skill, discipline, courage, and the power of mentorship. Harper Walker's journey, from underestimated child to elite operative and mentor, was a testament to the transformative power of focus, determination, and resilience. She had silenced doubters, earned respect, and now ensured that her knowledge and experience would endure, shaping the soldiers and missions of tomorrow. Ghost Viper was no longer merely it was a legacy, a standard, and a living example of what one person could achieve through unyielding discipline and relentless pursuit of excellence.